Hello, hello, and hello. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. Today, we're going to be reviewing CDFM Module 4, Competency 8, Test and Evaluation. So now we have our capability. We need to test it and make sure that it can actually fulfill the job that we created it to do. We're also going to be identifying any deficiencies in this equipment by testing it, by evaluating its success and its performance. So test T&E, test and evaluation, on page 481, the introduction tells you that it's used to identify and determine any deficiencies in that technology or the operational capability of that equipment. So you have different stages of test and evaluation. You have developmental test and evaluation, DT&E. While you're in the developmental stage, while you're doing the course of, you pick a course of action, you're developing it, DT&E. Later on, you have operational test and evaluation. Once you produce it and you develop, let's say you develop what they call prototypes. Who can think of it? Prototypes. And then now you actually have an actual equipment that you can test. So operational tests. So we have DT and E, and we have OT and E. So you're just going to need to know, okay, well, of course, developmental should tell you, okay, I'm probably going to do that on early in the process when I'm doing my testing of the prototypes, or operational once I put it, develop that low rate initial, the LRIP, when I develop those first low rate production, now I need to actually test them in the field, operational tests. You also can have, for those equipment that you have to test their survivability. Once you put a soldier or a military individual in these equipment, can they survive? So some of the equipment requires an LFT&E, FT&E, live fire test and evaluation. So DT&E, operational, developmental, operational, and live fire test and evaluation. So a program manager has a working level group, working level integrated product team, WIPT, a WIPIT. So they have these working level groups that helps along the way to do all of these testing and evaluation. So on page 482, they talk a little bit about the developmental test and evaluation. It's a well-planned strategy in this acquisition process in how we're going to test the equipment. But on the top of page 483, that first paragraph, you'll see it'll say the DT&E should increase to robust system level and systems of systems level testing and evaluation to ensure that the system has matured to a point. And you think about it. All right, if it's in the developmental stage, the purpose of you testing it and tweaking it is so that it gets better over time so I can put it in operation. So that's all they're saying here, where you can put it in that initial operational test and evaluation. Robust DT&E reduces technology or technical risk and increases the probability of success in the operational test and evaluation. See how sequence, right? It makes sense. If I'm developing it, the purpose of me testing and evaluating it, tweaking it so that it'll be better and I can most likely expect success in the operational. So during early DT&E, the test responsibility may fall to the prime contractor who will focus on testing the technical contract specification. So most of the DT&E, developmental test and evaluation, is saying can be done by the contractor while they're developing based on the specs that the program manager and all the powers that be says that that capability needs to be able to do. The contractor will be doing the test and evaluation. Oh, my throat's fine. All right. Another important thing on page 484, modeling and simulation. So that's the form of testing. And it says it's an integral part, inseparable from regular test and evaluation in support of the acquisition process. So the bottom line with modeling and simulation, understand, because it goes hand in hand with test and evaluation, it happens throughout the life cycle. Because again, when you're studying, you're wanting to know, does this happen at milestone A, milestone B, technology? What is this happening? As soon as they start, modeling and simulation begins, developmental test and evaluation. So they go hand in hand. And it says all modeling and simulation, that's the last paragraph on page 484, used in test and evaluation must be accredited by the intended user, the program manager, or the OTA. Accreditation can only be achieved through a robust verification, testing, identify any issues. Therefore, the intended use of modeling and simulation, like you put it in actual simulation, you're testing it, but you're putting it in a simulation process to test it. So to be identified early so that the resources can be made available. Makes sense. What I'm looking for, let me make sure. Yeah, all right, got it, got it. All right, so that's developmental. Page 485, we've done all those tweaking, fixing. So when we get to the operational test and evaluation, now I'm getting ready to put that equipment out in the field. So I need to also test it. Operational OT&E is conducted to determine system effectiveness, suitability, but most importantly, survivability of our human resources. So what do they do? On page 486, evaluation and the operational side, you want to have realistic combat operation. So if it's going to be an operation, you want to simulate exactly what that military individual or that warfighter is going to face when they actually get in that equipment. So realistic combat-like conditions. Production representative system for IOTC, articles of production line preferred, production representative, okay. Adequate resources, representative, typical users, the typical person that we riding it, program manager. So the understanding when they're doing the operational test, and I will say again, don't forget your program manager is hand in hand, according to with EVM, earned value management, contractor and the program manager work hand in hand. So it's not independent. And so while they're doing their operational test and evaluation, let's say they created 50 items and they identify a small crack in one of the equipment. Well, ethically, what should they do? Keep developing it, it's only a hairline fracture or crack, small crack. It doesn't affect the impact of the operation. Well, ethically, you're supposed to start over, report it, because again, if it's a crack now, it's going to get bigger later on. So ethically, so that's just an example of something that I saw before with this information. If you're in the operational, no matter how many items you develop, if you identify a discrepancy or deficiency in the item, you don't just continue developing it and just ignore that issue. Even though it doesn't stop it from working, it will come a bigger issue later. Page 488 starts the live fire test and evaluation. Again, those are the equipment that are considered covered on page 489. Let me make sure I'm saying that properly. Objective of live fire, provide timely survivability, but it's mainly on covered system. And then they give you the definition. Covered system is a DoD term intended to include all categories of systems or programs that require a live fire test and evaluation. A covered system means a system that the Director of Operational, DOT&E, Test and Evaluation, acting for the Secretary of Defense, has determined the major system within the meaning that term. So bottom line, if it's designated as a covered system, then it requires live fire. So a major system, the meaning of the term in 10 U.S. Code 2302, that is user occupied. A person gonna go in it, it's covered. Conventional ammunitions program, missile program. Conventional munitions program with more than 1 million rounds. Modification to a covered system that is likely to affect the survivability or lethality of the system. Because consideration is personnel survivability. Live fire test and evaluation has a statutory requirement to emphasize personnel survivability for all covered systems. And now, this is something that you're going to need to know. Test and evaluation, the names of the tests. So it's developmental test, operational test, live fire test. And then it's going to talk about at what point do they come into the process, because there's some other testing that's done. Modeling and simulation occurs throughout. All right, so the bottom of page 489, actually, let's take it to the page 10 in the bullets itself. So it talks about milestone A. So it's telling you at milestone A, projects that undergo a milestone A decision have a test and evaluation strategy. So they have a test, TES. So before milestone A test is done, test and evaluation. What else? ACAT 1 programs, a program manager forms the test and evaluation working, the WIPIT. As we said, a WIPIT works with the program manager. What else? The test is approved, the last bullet, test is approved by the USD ATNL under Secretary of Defense, Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, and the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation for all programs on the OSD Test and Evaluation Oversight List. So milestone A test is done, test and evaluation strategy. Milestone B and beyond on page 4810 in the middle, it now becomes a TEMP, test and evaluation master plan, TEMP. Basically the same thing, but more detailed, because when does your formal acquisition program begin? It begins at milestone B. So it makes sense. It now becomes a master plan because now you are in a full-fledged acquisition program. So test at milestone A, temp at milestone B. Those are your strategies in how you're going to test. And then on page 4811, that should not be anything new to you, the role of test and evaluation after milestone C and during the LRIP. Because in milestone B, we identified the number, the initial number that they're going to produce, the LRIP. And then milestone C is when you actually develop the LRIP. So that's why it's talking about the testing and evaluation at that point. What I want to, because they got the initial operational, the live fire, I want to make sure I don't miss operational. Let's see. Let's start with the milestone A again. Test, DT&E. So the most, yeah, there you go. That's what I was looking for. So on the milestone A, the most promising concept are defined, second bullet, including the DT&E. So it just referencing again, developmental test and evaluation is identified, operational test and evaluation, the live fire, all of that is developed in the test to say what the strategy is going to be as we move forward. All right. Test and evaluation, DT&E, OT&E, all right. And it repeats again on test and evaluation on page 4814. The test is done at milestone A. And the test describes the risk reduction as it pertains to modeling and simulation, developmental test and evaluation, operational test and evaluation. All of that is, they start talking about it in the test. And then the program manager has the whippet that works with them. So what do you expect to see later? Milestone. That's the test. And I expect to see the temp soon. So temp is on page 4818, test and evaluation master plan. Also has a whippet. At the very top of page 18, it says the test should be submitted 45 days before milestone A. So that's something important there. And I don't think it was listed back there. Nope. All right, so 45 days before the milestone A, the test is done. 45 days. And then the temp, program manager with DT&E, the whippet, providing support, is responsible also for producing the temp. The temp is considered a contract among the program manager, OSD, and the testing and evaluation sites. All right, let's see if it gives a timeline for the temp. Says time phase, page 19, 4819. Temp must also be considered with a time phase statement. Okay. The third bullet, the temp's approval process. The temp must be submitted also no later than 45 days from milestone B. That's what I was looking for. Subsequent program initiation, if a program manager must have OSD approval for programs newly added to OSD test and evaluation oversight, the temp must be submitted within 120 days of such designation. Once something is designated later on in the process, then they have 120 days. But a temp must be submitted no later than 45 days before milestone B. All right, so test and evaluation. All right, let's see if I can read that. DT&E, OT&E, live fires. We have test and evaluation strategy before 45 days before milestone A. Then it becomes a temp prior to milestone B. And modeling and simulation occurs throughout the whole acquisition process. All right, let's see. This particular section of test and evaluation is about 9% of the exam. So let me put 9% as I'm studying here. All righty, so this concludes CDFM Module 4, Competency 8, Test and Evaluation. All right, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, please, and thank you. Because what it does, the more people more activities on the site, the YouTube folks will promote those videos. So anybody type in Google something, looking for CDFM videos, CDFM support, then it'll advertise it because people are actually going to the site using it. So please subscribe. I'll really appreciate it. Thank you for all that you do and all your support to the CDFM study group. I thank you for stopping by. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. I'll see you guys again next time.